So prior to pursuing my master's, I got a certificate in alternative education. My goal was to learn interventions for students who are at risk so I could address that in the regular secondary school rather than leaving these students who are at risk to have to drop out of regular school and seek education in alternative school. So the article that I read was a study on the effectiveness of these alternative schools. What she did was compare at-risk students who were at the CAS school, the Central Alternative School, to at-risk students in the typical school in the neighborhood, as well as regular students who were achieving as you would expect in the typical school. Niblick compared these students, which she had more than 500 in her study, across such thing as the number of classes they were failing, their overall GPA, attendance records, tardy records, the number of times that they had a discipline referral, and in-school suspension, as well as the dropout rate, how many were still enrolled during their final enrollment period or had dropped out since then. Overall, what she found was that the regular students in typical schools were being very consistent in their level of achievement. In regards to academic performance, the CAS students were achieving better, or rather the alternative school seemed to be preventing any further decline in their academic achievement, whereas the at-risk students in the typical school were experiencing faster drops in GPA and an increase in the number of failed classes. In contrast, the CAS students, or the students at the alternative school, were experiencing a larger increase in behavioral issues as marked by the number of discipline referrals and in-school suspensions that they had. Niblick hypothesizes that these students exhibited more behavioral issues as a result of the smaller student population characteristic of alternative schools. She suggests that with smaller class sizes, the teachers there could hold their students to higher behavioral expectations and catch their misbehavior more often. Ultimately, she concludes that alternative schools are effective in preventing the further decline of at-risk students' GPAs. I wish the study lasted more than one semester. Given Niblick's hypothesis, I wonder if, given the time to adapt to the closer observation, these CAS students she studied behavioral issues would have leveled out or even declined. I come away with two thoughts. Given that alternative schools are effective as an intervention themselves, more research needs to be done about the successful strategies inside the alt schools so that they can be incorporated into typical schools in order to reach more at-risk students more consistently. Additionally, given Niblick's hypothesis connecting smaller student populations to teachers' ability to hold them to and support them in higher expectations, typical schools ought to provide at-risk students more opportunities to learn in smaller class sizes. Ultimately, Niblick is correct in saying that more research needs to be conducted, and I personally look forward to reading about, learning about, and utilizing the strategies that we deem to be successful in alternative and typical schools when it comes to at-risk students.